Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk, back again with another project for you. And this is another one using the All Good Things stamp set, which has this beautiful koi carp image, but has a lovely bonsai as well. Now the bonsai comes with this sentiment attached, no act of kindness, so I've actually done surgery. I've cut straight across the bottom of that section. That will enable me to use the tree separately from the sentiment without actually having to mask it off. There are some will be horrified by that. I used to be, but actually now I find it's really good because it enables me to use my stamps in a whole different way. The other thing that I'm going to show you on here is some embossing using the leaf. It's a Dynamic Impressions leaf fold. I can't remember the name, it escapes me right now. And then we have done some colouring with some markers on this image here. So let's get on with the project. You're going to need to make a standard card base. So for that I'm going to use some thick Whisper White. And I don't always show you making a card base, but I thought, you know, every so often I like to. So just take some thick Whisper White card, and if you're in the UK, I'm just going to cut that at 5 7/8 of an inch, just over here. And then I'm going to score that at 4 1/8 of an inch. So fold that in half. Then use your bone folder. There we go. Just to burnish that. And sometimes you'll find that you might have one edge that is slightly longer than the other. If that's the case, use that as your front edge. But that's the front of our card. Now I'm going to emboss using this folder here. So you'll see when you've got an embossing folder, you will see that you've got two sides. So you've got a side that is sort of debossed, so it actually goes in, and this side is raised. So just pop your cardstock, if you've got an edge on it, so that it's face down on the debossed side, and then pop that through your big shot. You can't see this, you use your standard platform and just one of your plates. So standard platform, thick embossing folders, just use one of your plates. And then when you come out, you will have this lovely piece of texture, and you'll see that some areas are more raised than others. Sometimes you'll get a bit of cracking on this. The way to prevent that, if you want to, and it does depend on how tight or loose your big shot is to just spray it lightly with water. I'm not worried about that today because I'm obviously going to be covering up and I rather like the texture it adds. So the next thing is to add our layer of Tranquil Tide, so one of the in colours, and I've made a narrow border on this. So this piece of card is 5 3/4 by 4 inches, and I'm just going to pop that onto my card. Okay, so that gives our base, and then we're going to pop this textured piece on. I've mentioned before, when I'm adding a layer of texture, ooh, it looks like my Tombow is about to go at the ghost, I often use wet glue. That's because it goes into the stuff, the dimples a bit more, and it's a bit easier to work with than a tape runner when you might flatten some of the pattern. So I'm just going to pop that on there, and when that's nice and square, pop that to one side to dry. Okay, so now we can do our stamping. So we've got a piece of card here, and I've got a panel of Tranquil Tide, which is 3 by 3.5 inches, and then again I've just taken 1/8 of an inch off, 2 7/8 by 3 3/8 for the image. And what I'm going to do here is I'm using my Stampin' Right markers, and this is what I always do whenever we get the first lot of in colours. I always buy the markers first, because that way it means I've got every colour I want without having to buy the whole set until I've decided whether I want all of the colours. I usually do. And then what we're going to do is pop a post-it note over the trunk part of it, so just like so, and then come in with the ink pad. And this is the new distinctive stamps, so they are actually you give almost like a sort of photographic effect. So I've inked the top section. I'm now going to ink my trunk using my marker, and if you look carefully you can in fact see where the kind of gravelly bit is. And I'm going to use my Grapefruit Grove. I probably should have done that first. Actually, I usually do my lighter colour first. You've probably just got a shot of my head. Just come in and just really sort of go over those. Yes, I have a little bit of soft suede on there. Right. Put your piece of card centrally. Breathe over your stamp just to kind of reactivate it. And then I'm going to put that image hopefully fairly centrally on my piece of card. There's our lovely little bonsai tree. And if any of those bits haven't quite come out, you can always just come in and just touch up slightly with your marker. And what I didn't do on my other one, which I'm going to do on this one, is just ground it slightly. So this is where you just kind of add a little bit of shading around the bottom, just with a bit of soft suede. Smoky slate blend, but you could use your markers as well if you've got them. Or an aqua painter and a bit of ink as well. So add that to our Tranquil Tide layer. Like so. And then we're going to do a similar effect with our sentiment. So I've got a piece of Whisper White, 2 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to take our sentiment, and this time I'm going to do it the right way around. So I'm going to cover in my words all the good things. I'm going to use slightly different sentiment, so hoping you find all the good things on the bottom. Then with my darker colour, I'm going to colour in words at the top. And this is where the Stampin' Right markers really come into their own, because they've got the same ink in them as the ink pads. So you're always going to get that proper colour coordination as well, but still be able to stamp. There we go. So that's my sentiment, and this time I'm going to layer it onto some Tranquil Tide. I've stuck the wrong one, never mind. Oh dear, it's not going well today, you know. I do have some days where I'm not good. I find I drop things and everything else, but that's part and parcel of condition I've got. Anyway, there we go. So, ignore the fact I've got a bit of glue on the back there. And my Stampin' embossing buddy is nowhere to be seen. What I would normally do is use my embossing buddy and just put some talc on the back of that, just to stop it being quite so sticky. But if I haven't got it, I can't do it. So in the meantime, I'll get my card back out and we can finish constructing our card. So here's our card, and what we want to do now is pop some dimensionals on the back there. You can see here, this is almost an empty sheet of dimensionals. That doesn't mean it's all wasted, because what you can do is cut these pieces off the side and use those instead. And it's just a way of making sure you get every bit of money's worth out of your stash, because nobody is going to be looking behind, well, unless they're taking your card apart, which is possible, I suppose. Just take off those. It takes just a little bit longer taking off those little bits of extra strip, but now I know I've got really full use out of my Stampin' Dimensionals because I've used every single little bit. Making sure your card's the right way up, not like I did in a video the other day. You then just centralise that panel. So I look at how much gap I've got between the top and the bottom, and I just eyeball that to be about the same on the right hand side. Next I'm popping a dimensional on the side here, and because I'm only overlapping it, rather than putting it at the one end, I'm going to put one halfway through. So I'm just going to pop that. Again, a roughly even space, and there is our card. So here we have 2 cards using a lovely new stamp set, all the good things, and creating a beautiful tree design, just ready to be gifted. So that's the project. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do purchase the products from my Stampin' Up shop so you can make it too. And you can find that at heidismith.stampinup.net for the links to the shop, or you can go to my blog flutterbyheidi.co.uk. There'll be pictures in there of the various things we've used. Just click on those and it'll take you to the shop. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me soon. Bye now.